Sorry.
Doc, you know what the Browns stand for? Everybody thought they were about Paul Brown, right?
Stop talking.
Hey, Doc.
Stop talking.
Been relying on winning next season for the last 60 years.
Can I mute you?
Live.
Aaron, somebody crapped on your hat.
We're live.
You gonna get all the pictures on?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that would
We're live.
have loved to have heard that live. I'm taking it off.
All right. We're ready to go, Carl.
Are we gonna get all the pictures on so I know who wants to speak?
They're all on.
I only got 3.
Well, I don't know what setting you have. I don't know. They're all on here on mine.
We got you and myself. Well, there's Tammy. Doc.
Yeah, they should be.
Okay, well, just say your name when you, because I don't have all your pictures when you want to speak. Okay, I'll call the meeting to order here, the city council meeting of June 9th. I believe all the council members are on Zoom here. And the first we'll if you wish to stand, and we'll have the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now, we're honored tonight to have Pastor Heather McLeod of the Christ United Methodist Church with us tonight to do the invitation. So this is our first time, so we're glad you're here. And when we get, I told her when we get back in the city building, come see us more often. Okay, Pastor?
Thank you. And the last name's McLeod. That's okay. It happens all the time. McLeod.
McLeod.
Yes. And thank you for the invitation. Will you please bow for a word of prayer? Lord, thank you for all of these men and women who are here on this council. Thank you for their leadership and their wisdom. We ask you to be present in all of the proceedings here tonight so that business may be conducted in a way that benefits all. We ask all of this in your precious holy name. Amen.
Yes.
Amen.
Amen.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we'll have roll call of council members.
He probably needs to turn it up on his thing. Okay. I've got to do roll call. Okay. Okay. I'm not sure. Okay. All right.
Yes.
All right. Bye. Ken doesn't have volume right now, so I'm not sure what's going on, but so we've got Mr. Baldinger,
Here.
Mr. Bodkins,
Here.
Miss Earlston,
Here.
Dr. Fellner,
Here.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes. Here.
Mr. Richard,
Here.
Mr. Triplett.
Here.
Okay, all 7 council members present on the Zoom meeting. Next roll call of elected officials, Safety Service Director.
Mayor O'Leary,
Here.
Auditor Trish,
Here.
Director of Law Palmer,
Here.
Treasurer Sparks, Safety Service Director Ward.
Here.
Okay, recognition of department heads. I believe the only one with us tonight is Matt Eckleberry, Communications Director of the city. Am I correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, next we'll have the approval of the minutes of the May 26th regular council meeting. You all had a chance to read it. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the May 26th regular meeting minutes.
Okay, Mr. Baldinger made the motion to approve.
Mr. Ivy will second.
Okay, Mr. Mackey seconded. Any additions or corrections? If not, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, I didn't hear everybody, but any opposed? Okay, the minutes hereby approved as presented. Next is, we only have one piece of legislation tonight. And so we need to add that to the agenda. That did not go through the committee. So I've asked for a motion to add ordinance 2020-38 to the agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to add ordinance number 2020-38 to the agenda tonight.
Mr. Balding made the motion. Do we hear a second?
Second.
And that's by
Mr. Triplett,
Mr. Triplett. Sounds like you. Okay, roll call.
Mr. Baldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins, you can hear, wave your hand. Mr. Bodkins, wave your hand. He can't hear. He can't. Can you wave your hand? Okay. Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett.
Yes.
Okay, passed 7-0. Now I need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Mr. Triplett made the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second
I
that.
second, Mr. Ivy.
Mr. Ivy seconded it.
Hello.
Julie's picked up the phone here.
I've got Ken on the phone, so I'll just do him over the phone. So
Okay, all in favor of the motion to approve the agenda as amended, say aye.
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 Okay, it passed. Moving on to legislation, we have ordinance 2020-38 tonight. Julie?
okay, hold on. I'm trying to do two things at once. Trying to keep Ken on here. All right, hold on. All right. Sorry about that. Wasn't covered. Ordinance number 2020-38, entitled Ordinance Authorizing the Safety Service Director to accept a Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security CARES Act Airport Grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Aviation Administration, and declaring an emergency.
Heard the reading of the ordinance. Discussion on this? Who wants to take the lead? It did not go through committee. So Mayor, would you like to, or? Brian?
So Nikki is there to answer that.
Nikki? Okay.
This is $30,000 in CARES Act money that the FAA has given the city. We can use it for basically anything related to the operations and maintenance of the airport. So originally we were told that we wouldn't have to have legislation, but I just received the e-contract and they're asking for legislation. So this is just allowing us to accept that $30,000.
Mr. President, I have a question, please. Mr. Ivy.
Go ahead.
Forgive me for being, what does this have to do with COVID-19?
I had the same question, Aaron. I think because so many airports are impacted so heavily with all of the travel restrictions. I think Cleveland Hopkins got something like $38 million. So the larger airports got significantly more than what we did. So we did get $30,000.
May I ask a question, please? This is a grant, correct?
Correct.
Fantastic. Thank you. No further questions.
And just a little bit, there are no matching funds related to this grant. So it's just $30,000 to help us with
No
operations.
further
and maintenance.
questions.
Other questions? Discussion? Mayor, do you have any comments on this? Mayor?
I'd only say that this goes back to something that I'd mentioned the last couple of meetings, and that is we should expect money coming at us from the federal government or indirectly state government. And so this may be the first of many unsolicited but greatly appreciated grants. So I'd only add that we're looking at kind of every pipeline of funding trying to keep an eye on when additional funds like this may pop up, and anything from childcare through roadway repair. So that kind of goes to the question Aaron was asking about where'd it come from. It's like, we didn't ask for it, but I think we have some uses to put it to, and first of what I expect to be many.
No, thanks. This is Ivy again, Mr. President. Thanks, Mayor. I appreciate the clarification. So it's 100% grant money. We're good to go.
Mr. Richard,
Go.
Yes,
Richard?
the fact that it is 100%, and I'm sure that out there at the airport, I'd like a motion at this time that we suspend the rules and to ordinance 2020-8 to the final reading.
38.
I second, Mr. President.
Okay, a motion by Mr. Richard, second by, was it Mr. Ivy?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, roll call?
Mr. Triplett, or Mr. Richard, I mean.
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Baldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Botkins, wave your hand. Okay. There we go. Okay. Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Motion to suspend the rules passed by 7-0 vote. Now, discussion on the ordinance.
I'd like to make a motion to pass 2020-38.
For the motion to pass 2020-38 by Mr. Triplett. Do we have a second?
Mr. Ivy?
Who made that? Mr. Ivy?
Mr.
Yeah.
Ivy,
Okay. Okay, discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Baldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Botkins, wave your hand. There you go. Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That concludes the legislation for the night. Going to other business. Had a conversation with Mr. Ivy here about an hour or so ago, and he'd like to address the council. But before that, committee meetings, we have one next Wednesday for the Gail. You have one for the finance.
Yeah, we got one on finance, the 17th at 7 p.m. Here on Zoom.
Yep.
Okay. While we're talking about that, you said here on Zoom, at what point, there's so much stuff going on and protesters and everything else in the country in large groups, when should we consider having committee meetings back in the city building? There's only usually a handful full there. And whose decision that might be yours because you're chairman of the finance committee in this case. What's your opinion on that?
Mr. President?
I'm willing to go back anytime that doesn't require masks.
Mr. President?
Yes. Mr. Ivy?
This is Ivy. Yeah, I appreciate your time very much. And I appreciate your time about an hour ago on the phone. You know, after everything being considered of what's transpired over the past week or two, not only just locally, but statewide and nationally, I am going to abstain from any vote going forward that is not in council chambers. We have restaurants opening, we have bars opening, we have rioters rioting, we have social distancing, we have masking, and going forward, as a member of city council, which I will continue to be, I would feel much more comfortable following the example of the federal, state, and local levels that's been set in precedent in the media before us, that it's okay to meet in committees of 3 to 4 people, whether it be Parks and Recreation, Finance, Economic Development, Streets and Utilities, and whatever else I'm missing. I apologize. But there's no reason why we cannot meet in person going forward after tonight. And I hope that everybody agrees with that, regardless of your political ideology. It's just common sense. And I appreciate it, and I'm done. Thank you, everyone.
As long as we don't have to have a mask.
I'm never wearing a mask. I assure you that I've never worn one. I mean, 4 people in a 20 by 35 foot room, mask or no mask, whether it be in a committee, and if we have to go Zoom for city council and to give everybody peace of mind, I do understand, but I don't. I had 1,500 people 3 times through the park today. Why are we not meeting in person to discuss the business of our community? The precedent has already been set. And you could drive through the park today to see it. And I'm not going to cave any more to the nonsense that's going on, regardless if you believe it or not. There are people's businesses burning to the ground, and we can't meet in public. Please. And I appreciate your time, and I'm done. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Most of the time, there's only a handful of people at committee meetings, but if there would be maybe more than 10, we could ask them to be out in the hallway to abide by that rule. And if everybody speak up enough or have a speaker or something, they can hear.
Mr. President, if I was out of line, I apologize to the rest of the committee, the council.
Well, maybe it's nice
I
brought up.
apologize. If it was out of line, I apologize. I certainly didn't mean that or to offend anyone. But quite frankly, I'm offended by not seeing all of you.
Okay.
So there you go.
Mr. Olson?
I would just like to add, I understand that it's, infringing wearing a mask, it's uncomfortable, people don't like it. But instead of looking at it maybe that way, maybe we could look at it. And I saw this as just like a small act of kindness that you could do for somebody who maybe doesn't have the kind of immune system that you have, maybe isn't able to leave their home like maybe some of us can. And just consider it a small act of kindness that you can do for somebody else in your community, because truthfully, it's not protecting you as much as it is protecting the people around you. And I know that there are quite a few of us on council who may find themselves in that situation where maybe our immune system isn't as great, or maybe we fall into that category where we're a little more at risk. And so, I guess maybe I just kind of look at it as a way to be, kind to the people around me and help them out a little bit. So
I can certainly respect that, Mrs. Earlston. I get it. I just, it just goes back to what I originally said, is that, it's got to come to a point in time where we look at what's going on, not just federally. We don't want to gauge what's going on in our city federally. That would be nonsense. Maybe even statewide in some circumstances, but locally, we've had people protesting and laying down on side of highways, and and I understand that. Believe me, I get it. But there's got to be a perfect balance that we find, and until we're able to meet again, I just feel more comfortable with abstaining from any votes going forward. And that's just because of my medical background and the fact that what's going on nationally in front of us is just not something that I am seeing as far as the 911 is COVID-19 anymore. We've got tens of thousands meeting all over the country in cities that are not social distancing and that are not wearing face masks. And our local community and our businesses have been dramatically affected by this. And I'm not saying that it's not real. It's a real issue, but it goes back to that balance. And that's just what I wanted to bring up. But I completely respect your opinion and your approach to this. So,
Mr. Richard?
Yeah, Mr. President, Mr. Ivy, you have a very good point. And I share your frustration in many ways with this. I personally think, as far given the amount of individuals that normally come to a committee meeting, we probably could go back to having committees at the in the council chambers. The only issue that I understand is the reason why we're still on Zoom is because the governor pulled the
You broke up. You broke up, Mike. I'm sorry.
the governor hasn't pulled the 10 people in the room requirement issue. And that's primarily the reason why we're still doing the Zoom is if what I understand. I think that it's a good idea to possibly, but I think that should be left up to the committee chairs, how they want to do that. I do think, though, that as a representative of the folks that you have in your area, that you should, I understand your, like I say, understand your frustration, but you may want to take and at least be available for the vote, given those circumstances. But I think, again, I think if this should, is something we could leave up to the committee chairs. You know what I mean?
You know what? You know what, Mike? You are exactly right. You know what? And I may have spoken to the other 6 of you. I apologize deeply. You know, there's going to be issues that come up that I may not need to abstain from. And in fairness to me and to all of you and to our community, I guess I was just, I just don't want to see us skip a beat as a community, economically, socially, or anything else, because something that may be that hasn't come to fruition yet. I mean, we have, I'm sure our health director is on the line. She's an RN. She's brilliant. She's guided us through all this. But I don't want her to come to the floor tonight necessarily, but I just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing and that we're ahead of the curve and that we're making good, sound judgments as a council, not based upon what if, but what is. And I'm going to leave it at that. And I know Mr. Triplett's probably hoping to adjourn soon, but you know, I'm going to leave it at that. But that's all I'm going to say. And so be it. So thank you. Thank you.
How does some of the rest of you feel about this? We've heard.
Doc has his hand up.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to call Mr. Palmer into this discussion. What is the official line about our meetings?
Well, in honesty, Dr. Fellner, it's been quite a while since I've had the necessity of looking at the specifics because, you know, when we first made this had this conversation, made these decisions, it was at least a couple of months ago. I do know, as it has been pointed out, that the 10-person gathering restriction is still in place. I think it might be illustrative if council would take a look at the cities around you to see what they're doing. Shelby, for instance, is having in-person council meetings. I don't know how they're handling the 10-person restriction, if they're actually excluding members of the public from their council meetings. I don't know. I do know that the city of Delaware had a council meeting last night, at which time it's been on Zoom since we've been on Zoom. And the city of Delaware is moving the first meeting of July to an in-person council setting. So I think it might be illustrative to look to see how other people are handling this. I won't speak to the mask thing. I think that's in part, that's a decision actually of the Safety Service Director's office in terms of who wears masks and not. There have been directives issued by the Safety Service Director's office dealing with the issue of wearing of masks. And so I think there would probably need to be a change in the Safety Service Director's directive if it would apply to council meetings or committee meetings. That's going to have to take place before those meetings could take place without the wearing of masks. I think the biggest issue is, again, has been brought up, is the 10-person gathering question. And Carl and I had a chance to talk about half an hour or so ago about this, and I suggested the possibility of opening the hallway outside the council room to people on an overflow basis, and actually allowing there to be some sort of streaming of the meeting in terms of at least the sound of the meeting. I think there's ways to handle this. I think we can be creative and meet as many concerns and move forward as creatively as possible. That's what I think.
Okay,
President, may I make a comment?
yes, go ahead.
I would say that the only thing I want to comment on is that the service director, that's with employees. You all are not employees. You all have your own authority. So the notion that the service director is going to tell council whether or not they can have to wear a mask, I think that's without, other than that, I had trouble hearing an answer to the question in the long description, but certainly it's not the service director's job to tell council whether or not to wear masks. Thank you.
As I said, Mr. President, as I said a couple of minutes ago, if there are orders or directives of the safety service director that would apply, they would still apply unless they would change. That's what I had said.
Hey, thanks for clarifying that. I didn't quite hear it that way. I need to maybe listen more closely.
So are we at the opinion, they said, maybe up to me, but I'm not on any of the committees, that I will say I like to attend them. And if I attend them, I will have a mask on because of my last 6 months health situations. And I'll certainly stay more than 6 feet away from anybody that does not have a mask on. But that's up to each committee chairman to decide whether they want to go back to meeting in council chambers. Does anybody have any objections to that?
If I can, Mr. Watt, it's my understanding that the importance for you to be at a meeting would be for us to have a mask on. And yes. I respect that you would wear a mask but I would feel more comfortable having a mask on for you.
Okay, well, thank you, but
to protect you, to be able to be in the meeting.
I don't have to attend the meetings even because I've not been a member of the committee, but I like.
Right, I understand that you, and I like having you able to attend the meetings, but like I said, I would also wear a mask, just not necessarily for me, but for the people around me too. I would feel better about that myself.
Exactly, that's the spirit of the mask, is protection and goodwill toward your fellow man, whether the science is there or not. Anyone who believes that a mask does not offer some sort of protection, I think is mistaken. And I will be wearing a mask under all conditions. I have the highest risk occupation of any of you. So I am going to wear a mask out of consideration for the people with whom I'm in attendance.
And if I could, Carl, I'd just like to also add that I really want to extend a thank you to Matt and Julie, because I think that as a council, what we have been doing with the Zoom meetings and everything, I think that we have done a great job collectively to continue with the government, our city government, and to continue to work and to continue to keep things going as best as we can, regardless of whether we've been able to meet publicly or not. So I just want to thank both of you for being, without you two doing this, I don't think things would have went as smoothly as they have. So I do want to thank you guys.
Thank you for that comment. I agree with it because I've heard some of the meetings that's had Zooms has not went as well as ours has. And I think thanks to both of them for all their work and efforts in getting this. So are we at the
Mr.
point?
President?
Yes.
Just 20 seconds, Mr. Ivy. Tammy, Mr. Earlston, thank you so much. Dr. Fellner, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, it's about finding balance. And I just feel much more comfortable personally meeting with our committees, meeting with the full council under the direction and the guidance of the, I want to say, state and federal officials now, because that's pretty much what we're following, but those seem to be contradicted. That's all I'm saying. And you know what? I just hope, and we can close out tonight, and it's a non-essential. I mean, the city is doing amazing, and it's a non-essential, but it's something I felt compelled to bring up for my first time in 6 months, passionately as a healthcare provider for 25 years. You know, I mean, I just see what's going on around the country right now, and I can't help but question the authenticity of the COVID-19 outrage that we saw from March through the end of May, until the last 2 weeks where it never came up again. And when you have tens of thousands of people burning buildings to the ground, throwing bricks, and they're not wearing face masks and they're not social distancing, I mean, that's what Gallion's all about. Face masks, social distancing, and COVID-19, because thank God we haven't experienced the latter.
Well, that Minneapolis police officer didn't have a mask on either. And he certainly—
There's 44 of them dead in the past week. So, you know, I mean, we can go on, but it's okay.
I think we
44 of them dead.
Pretty soon.
Well, I've said this to many people that thank goodness living in a small community in the city of Gallion and the great police department we have. Certainly in favor of them, and I think they do a good job, and hope you get to hear my comments. So thanks for all they do. So we'll leave it like—
They're doing an amazing job.
Yeah, right. So Gail, you want to have it in the council chambers Wednesday night?
Yeah, I've been sitting here listening to all the discussion, and I agree with both sides of this mess. Yeah, my only issue, it's not that I have disrespect for anybody that I'm around, but I do have, if I'm in a mask for a prolonged period of time, I start having some breathing issues. I don't get enough air. I start getting dizzy. I can go short periods of time. I'm talking 5-10 minutes, but if it goes over that, I either got to have my nose out, or I got to be able to get more air than what the mask provides me to bring in. Even the masks, I realize they're not that restrictive, but they're just enough restrictive enough that after a prolonged period of time, I start having issues.
Well, there are people that has health issues wearing them, so that is explainable. So, but
And I think—
you want to have the meeting then? You're going to have the meeting in council chambers, Mr. Baldinger?
We can.
Please.
If you're there, and I'll try to wear a mask. But if I have to pull my nose out, I'm going to be pulling my nose.
And Dr. Fellner and Mr. Baldinger, if you want me to wear a mask, I'll be happy to. I just want to see everybody and discuss things in real time.
It's completely optional, Aaron.
Well, then I won't. So there you go.
Don't wear a mask just because of me. I can sit in the hallway. Okay, how's
There
that?
you go.
But okay, next Wednesday's finance meeting then will be in council chambers, and any other committee chairman that calls a meeting will agree to have it there if they so wish to have it there. Okay.
President,
Very good.
Mayor, do you have anything on this?
I want to say that I think that there's enough of an agenda for Doc Fellner's committee to meet. There is what would be an update on the loan program. There are a couple of other economic development related discussions without being coy or cryptic. We need some feedback as to whether council has a feeling about the South Market Parsons Pershing property, and whether or not that can be redeveloped. And there are a couple more items. So if it's not next Tuesday, we need to have one. The Port Authority has been meeting pretty regularly and producing some stuff that I think would be good for them to report back to the committee.
So Julie, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Julie, the 16th would be the normal economic development.
Yep.
I can
Okay.
advertise it. I didn't advertise it before,
Sure,
but I have time. I can advertise it tomorrow and it'll appear on Saturday.
great. And we will have it in council chambers.
Okay, well, I'll re-advertise the finance committee meeting and say that they'll both be in council chambers. That'll work.
Mayor, do you see any other committees that should be meeting in the next couple weeks?
No, that off the top of my head, that's probably it. One of the things, hold on here, sir. Yeah, one of the things that I think we'll have to be responsive to, either voting them onto the agenda or when there's time,
Right.
the flow of these federal dollars into the community is, it may come into sort of various committees. I certainly am hoping that the first chunk of CARES Act money, that may be on the agenda next Wednesday for finance, basically to talk about the need to have us be able to accept that. I want to make one other comment. I'm not sure what the committee is, but this would go to the law director, is that some other cities I've seen have been passing ordinances that enable the city to receive sort of grants across the waterfront that are COVID related.
Right.
I'm not sure if we want to think about that approach, or as one chunk comes in, I imagine the health department, they're going to push out money there. And so I'm not sure if that might be something to discuss, Thomas.
Yeah, there is mandatory legislation to be passed if council does want to accept that money from the state. So that is already tentatively going to go, Tom, on the finance committee agenda.
That's a good thing. I mean,
Hey.
anyway.
Anything
Mr.
else?
President,
Yeah, anything else other than?
I'm sorry, this is Ivy again. If we're gonna start resuming committee meetings and council chambers, I would really like in the next 3 to 4 weeks to have a Parks and Rec committee, just to touch base with the mayor, to make sure we're all on the same basis, just to see where we're at. And if we don't need to meet after that fact for a month or two, that's fine. But if nobody has any objections, I'd be very grateful.
I think, hey, Aaron, you need to apologize. I was going to go there next. I'm glad you spoke up. We may want to look at remobilizing or going back to the Freeze Foundation and saying, that 400,000 we told you to keep. We may be a couple projects that, as things change, make more sense.
Maybe in late June we can meet.
Pardon me?
Maybe in late June, the committee can meet and we can just touch base and make sure we're on the same grounds going forward. I mean, it's been a tough year, so.
That'll just be a special meeting, so we'll have to have the exact agenda. We couldn't change it unless your next meeting is scheduled, would be July 8th, but so.
Yeah, it can probably go that long, but they'll probably, I would say either next Wednesday or on the 8th, there's probably a change order or two that will spin up out of a couple projects. And my guess is that we'd probably want to have that run through committee and discuss the need for the change order and how to resolve it. So.
Well, if you don't mind, Mayor, I'm on vacation for the next 2 weeks. I can just come up and touch base with you for 5 to 10 minutes in the next week or two and just get on the same page. So that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'll be around tomorrow, but I think as far as a committee, that it's good to have a discussion about whether or not we want to let the freeze dollars set, or if there are some projects that we may want to reactivate.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Sounds good.
Okay.
And any other chairmen of the committees, keep in touch with the mayor if they have me. Be sure you let Julie know so we can get it advertised, okay?
And Mr. President, I'll make sure I include you in any communication as well. So that's good.
Okay, thank you.
Mr.
Anything else?
Mr. President,
Yes.
Mrs. Gates, I have one other. I've had in the last week or so, I've had several for the Parks Committee. Dog park. I'm getting probably more requests now than I ever several times in the past couple of years. Nobody's ever acted on it, but I'm getting more and more requests for people that want to walk their dogs and or have a place for them to run. So I really would like for the Parks Committee to take a look at
Mr. President, if I could respond to Mr. Baldinger, I appreciate it very much.
Go ahead.
I've gotten calls too, Gail. I got an email tonight from Matt, and I've heard several comments about that. And you know what? That's what I would like to talk to the mayor about over the next day or two, and see if we can all get on the same page and present something through a committee that everybody would be fond of. So it's heavy on my mind as well as far as Parks and Rec. So
I've told the people that I would bring it up, and
yep.
we can get something started on that. So I
actually called back a lady tonight that was talking about it and informed her that we were going to be in council tonight and that it may very well come up in conversation. But once again, let me get with Tom on that, Gail, and we'll bring it to Parks and Rec, and we'll get something together. I have no doubt about it, because I know the mayor's heard a lot about dog parks as well. It seems to be a popular idea, so I have no doubt we'll come together on something. So
okay, I appreciate it. Thanks,
Mr. Mayor.
Is that for unlicensed or just licensed dogs?
Yeah, that's what we got to dig
we're
into
way
down the
serious.
future. Right now we're at square one, man. So,
Pardon me?
I said right now we're at square one. That's down the road as far as crossing A's, B's, and C's. We don't have any idea yet, so we'll look into it for sure.
I'm in favor of it. There's city
I am
property,
too.
but we got to take certain things into consideration, and
Absolutely.
so, yep. Sounds like we've got an agenda for parks shaping up.
Sounds good. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Part of dog parks, I can see why that's become more of a subject now, because during this quarantine season, coronavirus, there's been lots and lots of dogs adopted through humane societies and so forth. People were lonesome and they adopted pets. So it now would be a good time to be talking about it. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. President, last word I swear to all of you on council, I promise. If we could figure out a location for more than one, that would be the most ideal. I mean, it's a huge concern for, the citizens that have pets. So, I mean, I seem to be hearing about this more than any other topic in the parks right now, guys. That's all I'm saying. So.
Okay, before the meeting goes completely to the dogs, we'll move on, okay?
Rough.
Okay, Auditor Trish.
Just three real quick things. Yes, we will be having the Finance Committee meeting on Wednesday. There are several topics that need to be resolved. As Law Director and the Mayor alluded to, the one is to vote for acceptance of some issues. The second one is we did see a slight decrease in income tax over the year from last year for the month of May, which we received in June, but it's much, much less than we had initially thought it might be. And as is Mr. Ivy going on vacation, I am going to be out of the office Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I will be back in on Monday, and we'll go from there. That's all I've got, unless there's some questions.
Yeah, I have a statement on that, Brian. While the revenue may be off slightly, expenditures are off more than a year to date. So the net balance is the general fund balance continues to grow. So you're right, and so am I right.
Exactly. There was no right or wrong. That's exactly correct. We are in great shape. We're at $20 million effectively, and we started out with 19. It's almost $700,000 net increase over the 1 year ago today. So yeah, we're doing fine. Excellent job.
Mobilization of spending without a lot of fanfare. So I just wanted to mention that. Anyway, thank you for letting me butt in.
Anybody have anything of Auditor Trish? Questions? If not, Treasurer Sparks, he's not on Zoom, is he?
Nope, he's not.
Okay. Law Director Palmer.
Nothing really. I do want to mention, if you haven't done so already, that the ethics report, the financial disclosure statement, is due on July 15th coming up. It's due on tax day. So if you haven't done it, put it in the back of your mind. front. That's it. Thanks.
That's it. Okay, Mayor?
Let's see here. Yeah, I'm unmuted. There's a lot of things that we can talk about. I think I'll just say that the surest way to get the pool open is to tell the public that it ain't going to be open for 3 weeks, and then boom, it's open. We're happily surprised by that. Hope that continues, and don't have a real complete explanation as to why it happened. But that's a good thing. And if you went through the park, sounds like Aaron did, but if you went through the park, there were a surprising number of people at the pool. So I think that's one thing to report. I think we're all getting used to getting real short notice on when the state is changing their rules or lifting some of their regulations. So this evening, we're going to continue to plan ahead, assuming that we can have fireworks on the 4th. Any talk that was indeed going on to try to see whether or not we could have a scaled down pickle run or something to that effect, we're really pretty much ditching those plans. It complicates the work of the health department. Any real attempt to regulate the number of people in Heisey Park to try to conform to either the 10-person limit or any other kind of limitation on people just seems to be pushing the line. But maybe I sound like Councilman Ivy. I'm kind of hitting the limit. It's hard for me to understand what would restrict us from shooting off fireworks. No way encouraging a large crowd, but allowing them to go up. And so we'll kind of see how that fleshes itself out. I had an opportunity to talk to Representative McLean this afternoon. Did two things. Told him, good job, way to keep hanging in there and representing our interests, which from my point of view he has, but also to try to see if some of the word we'd heard from the Department of Health somehow banning or not allowing fireworks, whether that was, how accurate that was, and to what extent the city would get in trouble and with whom if we went ahead and shot off fireworks. So I'll mention those two things. Answer any other questions that are out there. Paving, weather permitting, starts on the bike path tomorrow. I think they'll get next to nothing done tomorrow, but the next 3 days, particularly that would be if they work Saturday. Thursday and Friday look like real good days weather-wise, and there's that. I think that'll move along really fast. So end of this week, early next week, we may have a bike path that just simply needs some seeding and some final inspection before we turn it loose for the public. So I don't know what else to mention.
Anybody have any questions of the mayor or?
Charles Street,
Yes.
What about it?
is it gonna be open by Christmas?
Yeah, I don't know. It's getting quite a bit of daily attention. Some folks may know there was an errant driver, we'll call it, that was driving down there and clipped off a utility pole. That didn't help, but it really seems, honestly, Mark, it seems like a project that's just got, one issue or problem after another. We're going to try beginning, we think, next week, once all the signage has arrived, to go to a one-way directional to allow through traffic. Going to monitor that real close. The last thing we would want to do is, the people who live on Charles Street have been the most greatly impacted. And in our effort to open it up so that a state route can be a through route, we don't want to cause problems for the neighbors who are going to be dealing with that. They have been dealing with it and will be dealing with it. To answer your question, the very last part is the end of the month is when their latest extension and change order was signed. And after that, barring some sort of negotiation, they'll start to incur liquidated damages at the rate of $1,000 a day. So I'm not real optimistic that they'll hit that end of the month negotiated time frame. So does that give you enough info?
Yeah, thanks, Tom.
I would
Mr.
say,
Mayor, Mr. President,
somebody who's a real crusader on the issue of lowest bid. And, you know, that's kind of been the tradition, but here's a situation where the lowest bid was significantly lower than the estimate and a lot lower than the rest of the groups that bid. And you feel good about that for about 10 minutes, and then you start thinking about what caused that to be such a low bid, and whether or not the smile on bid date turns into a bottle full of aspirin as you try to get it built. That's really what's happened here. So how's that for not, I think it's answering the question, Mark, but it's certainly over answering. They'll start to get a financial impact at the end of the month. But if y'all would go out there and say, are they going to get done the next 3 weeks? I don't know. It looks kind of sketchy.
Mr. President,
Yes.
my last words, Mr. Mayor, last 20 seconds, and I apologize to my fellow council members. I'm the most vocal I've ever been. As far as Oktoberfest and whether it's being modified, as far as bringing people into the community, Mr. Mayor, I would just encourage you, I hope, that we maximize every opportunity that we have. And we are, over the last 5 to 10 years of this new transition into our new government, are in an amazing financial position, much more than other communities in the area. And if we have to welcome people from Lexington, Mount Vernon, Ontario, Mount Gilead, whatever, Bucyrus, to our fireworks, to our restaurants, to our businesses, and so be it. But thank you for everything that you're doing, and that I really am done. So thank you.
Oktoberfest, y'all. That as far as I'm concerned, that's
don't cancel it.
Yeah, it's a world away in terms of what the state's going to allow. I expect a mass gathering. Not that they care about our 4th of July, but a lot of people really care about Ohio State and high school football and professional sports. And so that will be the big driver. And the pressure that I have no appetite for the pressure that they must be under, meaning the decision makers, when you have a handful of billionaires, asking for an answer. So we're a little bit kind of pipsqueakish, but on the same token, our fireworks are pretty important to us.
It could be for 6 counties in the area, and it could, it's just important. I mean, let's look forward to the next 6 months. Every community across the country is on an economic development reprogramming, and we're already ahead of the game because we're in a great financial situation. Let's give the 3-county area what they want, and let's bring money to our community. So let's just provide. I'm sorry. I'm just angered by everything that's going on right now. So thank you all.
President, there's probably one more thing I should mention. I thought, I'm going to let it slide. And then it's like, no, it's really not the right approach. I hope everyone on this call and whoever else is listening, it's one of the things I didn't enter into the previous discussion, but as far as committees, we've never had so many people be able to participate in committee and or council meetings. So mindful of that, I'll be a little bit circumspect. There were two directly conflicting, one kind of coincidental event scheduled for Uptown Galleon on Saturday. I'll only say that and if you listen to my Facebook last night, it may have worked because we heard from the folks wanting non-Galleonites wanting to come to Galleon for a demonstration, if you will. From what I understand, they have changed on Facebook their time from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock. So the proper, if there's balance that needs to be, that's a PC word, I'll use it. But the veterans are not going to be overshadowed, and any concern about a conflict between the point of view of those very passionate groups. Hell, probably all of them wearing black t-shirts, come think of it. But anyways, I think both are going to go on, and I think that's a good thing for Galleon. The chamber also has something going on that involves shopping locally, and I think that's over at 2 o'clock. So the more political and topical event organized by non-Galleonites for Galleon, from what we understand, will happen at 2. And we're hoping to secure a use permit for the use of city property, like we have with every other group. So, without trying to be coy or smart aleck or talk around it, if I think everyone knows 3 events, or at least the 2, and so the way we said on Tuesday night is more clarity than this afternoon or early this morning, and I think all the events will coexist. It'd be really cool if they did, for those people who are who have of the point of view that we've all got to get along and whatnot. So that's our goal.
That's it. Okay. I think the meeting tonight has been very productive for a lot of things in committee. We got those settled, and as far as any change in the council meetings, we'll certainly let you know of any change, but make sure we are within the laws and so forth before we make any changes back to council chambers. So I don't have anything else. So thank you for your patience. It's now 1 minute till 8. Do I hear Mr. Triplett? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I will make that motion if Aaron is done.
You know, Mark, I've got notes here, man, but I'll second that motion for next time.
Okay, who seconded?
Hey, in all seriousness, thank you all very much. I've never been passionate about anything, and I'm sober as can be, and I just want us to do what's best for our city, and I'll leave it at that. So there you go.
Okay, we had a second to that motion. Did we, Julie? Who made it?
Yes, Mr. Ivy made it.
Okay, Mr. Ivy made it. Mrs. Earlston had her hand up, but it was too late.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 8 o'clock. Thank you all.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Thank
night.
you all. I appreciate it.
Good night.